Britain's spy agency MI5 is tracking almost 30 domestic terror plots involving 1,600 terror suspects and 200 different cells. It says it's foiled 5 major terror plots since the London bombings last year and warns future threats will include chemical, biological, and even nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Tony Blair responded by saying Britain needs to toughen its anti-terror laws. London's police chief said over the weekend that Muslim leaders here are not doing enough to help authorities find terror suspects, and in fact are in denial over the scope of the problem. Most Muslim leaders say they will help, but one radical said the terror threat is the government's fault.
Well, clearly it's the government's fault that they have decided to occupy Muslim land, that they've decided to murder innocent Muslims in Iraq and in Afghanistan, that they support tyrant regimes in Muslim countries, that they support the tyrant regime of Israel, that they've introduced many draconian laws in this country targeting the Muslim community specifically, and this has had a backlash.
MI5 says British Muslim teenagers are being groomed to be suicide bombers, and that radicalization of young people is the biggest problem officials face. Moderate Muslim leader Harris Rafiq says radical mosques are even turning young people against their parents.
I know of youngsters who have refused to eat in the same house as their parents because they believe that person's an apostate or an heretic.
When 4 suicide bombers killed 52 people on 3 underground trains and a bus in London last year, 3 of the bombers were British-born. Then 3 months ago, police foiled a plot by British Muslims to blow up transatlantic jetliners. But it's not just Britain. CBS reported there are indications al-Qaeda may be planning to attack rail and air travel all across Europe. Dale Hurd, CBN News, London.
Thank you, Dale. Our CBN News terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck is with us from Washington. Eric, what do you make about this plans by al-Qaeda to attack Europe during the holidays? Do you think this will happen?
Well, George, I spoke to an intelligence source in London this weekend who said, Eric, welcome to the future of Europe. Europe will remain under constant threat, George, for years and years to come. As we've discussed on the club several times, Europe is inundated with radical Islamic populations. In many areas, they're simply out of control, George. Now, I'm told that mass transit systems in Europe, in cities like London, Paris, Rome, are going to be under constant threat from the Islamists in the coming months. They look at mass transit as an easy target, an easy mark. Buses, trains. You don't have bag searches on mass transit, so that's going to be a target, George, in the coming months for the jihadists in Europe.
Eric, what do you make about these reports that terrorists are being pulled out of Afghanistan and Pakistan? Are they going to Europe, Iraq?
George, they're going to both places. In Iraq, they see the U.S. They see our will bending somewhat in Iraq. They see the U.S. on the fence. You look at the recent elections, the House and the Senate changed hands. The jihadists see the U.S. in disarray somewhat right now on Iraq. Donald Rumsfeld was either resigned or was fired. So they see us in disarray. So they see Iraq as an easy mark right now. And Europe, obviously, is unwilling to defend itself. So these are definitely problems. And another thing, George, in Afghanistan, the Arab al-Qaeda fighters who are returning to Iraq and Europe from Afghanistan, they think they've left Afghanistan in good hands. The Taliban is resurgent there. The Arab al-Qaeda fighters have taught the native Afghanis the finer points of suicide bombing. You know, George, we didn't see suicide bombings in Afghanistan before 9/11. Now we've seen a real rash of suicide bombings. And then again, that resurgent Taliban. So they feel that Afghanistan is in good hands, and they can redirect their efforts to Iraq and Europe right now.
Eric Stakelbeck, our CBN News terrorism analyst from Washington. Eric, thanks so much.
Thank you, George.